The stars looked different from this part of space. Lieutenant Olivia Reeves stood on the observation deck of the Earthship Defender, watching the unfamiliar patterns of light. After 3 weeks of travel beyond the edge of human-explored territory, everything felt strange and new. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Captain Frank Martinez said as he joined her by the viewport. Olivia nodded. "Hard to believe we've come this far in just 15 years since the warp drive." Humanity had been lucky. The discovery of faster-than-light travel had happened almost by accident when Dr. Ellen Ward noticed an odd pattern in her quantum field. Experiments. What followed was the fastest technological leap in human history. Within a decade, Earth had built its first deep space vessels and made contact with 3 alien species, all friendly traders who welcomed humans to the galactic community, but they had also brought warnings about the Carax. "Lieutenant Reeves to the bridge," came the announcement over the ship's comm system. "All senior officers to the bridge." Olivia and Captain Martinez exchanged a look. They had entered this sector specifically to investigate reports of Carax activity near a neutral trading post. It seemed they might have found what they were looking for. The bridge of the Defender hummed with quiet tension as Olivia took her station. The main screen showed a massive ship approaching from the nearby nebula. Its design was unlike anything in their databases, all sharp angles and protruding spines like a predator adapted for both defense and offense. "Scan complete, Captain," said Science Officer Wendy Miller. "The vessel is 3 times our size with energy readings that suggest advanced weapons systems. Life signs indicate approximately 400 beings aboard." "Matches the descriptions we received of Carax warships," Tactical Officer Ben Diaz added. Captain Martinez settled into the command chair. "Communications?" "Nothing yet, sir," replied Communications Officer Peter Wright. "Wait. Incoming transmission." The main screen flickered and changed to show the interior of the alien vessel. The humans fell silent as they got their first look at a Carax. The creature stood nearly 9 feet tall, its body covered in natural armor plates that shimmered with a greenish-black iridescence. Its head featured multiple eyes set in a forward-facing arrangement, the mark of a predator species, and a mouth filled with rows of sharp teeth. Massive clawed hands gripped the sides of a command chair that looked like it was made from the bones of some unfortunate creature. "I am War Admiral Graxathar of the Carax Dominion," the alien said in a deep, rumbling voice that seemed to vibrate through the bridge despite coming through speakers. "You have entered territory claimed by the Dominion. Identify yourselves." Captain Martinez stood up straight. "I am Captain Frank Martinez of the Earth Defense Fleet Vessel Defender. We are on a peaceful mission of exploration and seek friendly contact with all spacefaring species." The Carax made a sound that might have been laughter. "Earth? The new species we have heard rumors about?" Graxathar leaned forward, his yellow eyes narrowing. "Let me see you clearly." The camera zoomed in on Martinez and the nearby officers. Graxathar studied them silently for a moment, then barked something in his native language to someone off-screen. More laughter followed. "Such soft creatures," the Carax said finally. "No claws, no fangs, thin skin. How interesting that you've survived long enough to develop space travel." Olivia tensed at the dismissive tone but kept her face neutral. The Trader Alliance had warned them about this. The Carax judged all species by their physical attributes first. "We have much to offer in terms of trade and cultural exchange," Martinez said calmly. "Our differences can be strengths if we choose to learn from each other." The Carax commander's mouthparts clicked together in what seemed like amusement. "Cultural exchange? Trade? You misunderstand your situation, Captain. The Carax Dominion does not trade with prey species. Your vessel will be boarded. Your crew will be evaluated for usefulness. Those with skills may serve the Dominion. The rest will serve other purposes." The threat hung in the air, but Martinez didn't flinch. "I'm afraid we must decline your offer, War Admiral. We prefer to maintain our independence." Graxathar's expression shifted to something the humans couldn't read. "You speak as if you have a choice. Look at yourselves. Look at us. For 50,000 years, the Carax have ruled this sector because we are the apex predators of the galaxy. It is the natural order." "With respect," Martinez replied, Where we come from, the natural order is more complex than simple physical dominance. The Carrack's leader made a dismissive gesture. You have 1 hour to prepare your ship for boarding. Any resistance will be met with force. The screen went dark. Captain Martinez turned to his crew. Options? Their ship outguns us 3-1, Tactical Officer Diaz said. But their weapon systems are surprisingly simple, just very powerful. They rely on brute force rather than precision. Can we outrun them? Asked Navigator Sam Kelly. Science Officer Miller shook her head. Their engines are showing higher output than ours. They'd catch us before we could reach the jump point. Olivia spoke up. They're overconfident. Did you notice how their shields are configured? All their protection is concentrated forward. They're not used to being attacked, only to attacking. The traders mentioned this. Martinez nodded. The Carracks have been the dominant species for so long that they've stopped innovating. Why improve when you're already on top? He turned to Diaz. What about the new targeting system? Diaz smiled slightly. Never been field tested, sir. But in simulations it lets us hit targets with 95% accuracy at ranges where their weapons would have less than 30% accuracy. So we can hit them before they can reliably hit us, Martinez concluded. Miller, what's their weakest point? Their engine cooling systems, Miller replied. Located here. She pointed to a schematic on her screen. Disable those, and they'd lose maneuverability without destroying their ship. Martinez nodded slowly. We didn't come here looking for a fight, but we need to show them that humans aren't easy prey. He pressed a button on his chair. All hands, battle stations. This is not a drill. Throughout the ship, crew members rushed to their positions. In the weapons bay, technicians prepared the new long-range targeting systems. In engineering, Chief Engineer Doug Harris diverted extra power to shields and engines. Open a channel, Martinez ordered. Grax Thar appeared on screen again, looking impatient. Your time is not yet up, human. Have you decided to surrender with dignity? We've decided to offer you one last chance for peaceful contact, Martinez said. The Carracks may be physically impressive, but there are many forms of strength in the universe. The Carrack's leader's anger was visible now. Your arrogance is amusing but misplaced. Perhaps a demonstration is needed. He barked an order, and a moment later the defender shook as a warning shot passed close by. Return fire, Martinez said calmly. Targeted strike, cooling systems only. The human ship's weapons, physically smaller than the Carrack's massive cannons, fired with surgical precision. 2 bright beams hit exactly where Miller had indicated. On screen, Grax Thar's expression changed from confidence to confusion as alarms blared behind him. What is this? He demanded. What have you done? We've disabled your engine cooling systems, Martinez explained. Your ship is still functional, but if you try to pursue us or fire your main weapons, your engines will overheat within minutes. We don't wish to harm you or your crew. Impossible, Grax Thar snarled. Your weapons are too small to cause such damage. Size isn't everything, War Admiral, Martinez replied. Precision matters too. The Carrack's commander stared at the human captain with new awareness in his alien eyes. For the first time in his life, Grax Thar felt something he had never experienced before. Doubt. What do you want? He asked, his voice less certain now. The same thing we wanted before, Martinez said. Peaceful contact. Recognition of our boundaries. Perhaps in time mutual respect. As the 2 ships faced each other in the vastness of space, something unprecedented was happening. For the first time in millennia, a Carrack's warship was negotiating with what it had initially deemed prey. Back on the Carrack's vessel, Grax Thar turned to his second-in-command, Sub-Commander Vrex. Send word to the Dominion, he said quietly. We have encountered something unexpected. The message that traveled across Carrack's communication channels that day was simple, but would change the course of galactic history. We have met a species called humans. They look like prey. They are, not proceed with caution. News traveled fast through the Carrack's dominion. A small human ship had disabled a Carrack's warship without firing a single destructive shot. War Admiral Graxthar's report caused a stir among the Carrack's leadership. Many refused to believe it. Others demanded immediate action. In the Grand Hall of the Dominion Command on the Carrack's homeworld, Supreme Overlord Vraxkul slammed his massive fist against the arm of his throne. Made from the bones of the last species that had challenged Carrack's rule, the throne cracked slightly under the impact. "Impossible," he roared. "Graxthar has grown weak to be outwitted by soft-skinned prey." Around him, lesser commanders chittered nervously. None wanted to be the focus of the Supreme Overlord's anger. War Commander Kravnar stepped forward, his green-black armor plates gleaming under the harsh lights. "Supreme Overlord, I request permission to lead a proper fleet to deal with these humans." Graxthar's single ship was clearly insufficient. Vraxkul's yellow eyes narrowed. "You believe you can succeed where he failed?" "Graxthar was careless," Kravnar replied. "He underestimated an unknown species. I will not make the same mistake. I will take 30 warships and end this human problem before it spreads." The Supreme Overlord considered this for a moment. "Very well, but know this, Kravnar. If you fail, do not return." Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the Earth Defense Fleet, Vessel Defender, had returned to human space with its report of the Carrack's encounter. In the large meeting room of Earth Defense Headquarters in Geneva, military and civilian leaders gathered to address what many saw as an impending crisis. Admiral Susan Nelson stood at the front of the room beside a holographic display of the encounter. "Captain Martinez's mission confirmed what our alien allies warned us about. The Carracks view all other species as either rivals or prey, and they've classified us as the latter. But Captain Martinez's ship drove them off," said Councilman Allen. Porter, a thin man with gray hair. "Doesn't that prove we can defend ourselves?" "One ship against one ship, yes," General Vincent Daniels replied. His weathered face showed the concern he felt. "But our intelligence suggests they're preparing a much larger response. We need to be ready." Dr. Heather Grant, the top xenobiologist in the defense fleet, cleared her throat. All eyes turned to her. "We need to understand what we're dealing with," she said. "The Carracks evolved as ambush predators on a harsh world. Their entire society is built on dominance hierarchies. In their culture, might doesn't just make right. Might is everything." "So negotiation is off the table?" asked Secretary Jane Wilson. Dr. Grant nodded. "For now, yes. To them, our attempt to negotiate after Captain Martinez's show of force was confusing. In their minds, if you have the upper hand, you use it to crush your opponent completely. The fact that we didn't suggests weakness to them, not mercy." Admiral Nelson stepped forward again. "Which is why our response needs to be decisive. We don't have the numbers to match a Carrack's fleet ship for ship, but we do have something they don't: creativity." The plan they developed over the next 3 days was called Operation Mongoose, named after the small mammal known for hunting cobras. By the time Carrack scouts were detected entering the outer edges of the Sol system, everything was in place. War Commander Kravnar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominant, leading a fleet of 30 Carrack's warships toward the human homeworld. His scouts had reported minimal defenses, just a small group of human ships near the large gas planet in their system. "They hide behind their giant world," Kravnar said with a dismissive click of his mandibles. "Prepare all ships for combat. Today we add human bones to our collection." The Carrack's fleet moved swiftly toward Jupiter, where 8 human ships waited in formation. As soon as the Carracks came within range, the human vessels began to retreat, firing only enough shots to look like they were trying to defend themselves. "They flee," exclaimed Subcommander Zextol. "Shall we pursue?" Kravnar made a sound of satisfaction. "Of course. Show no mercy." The Carrack ships accelerated, chasing the seemingly outmatched human vessels deeper into the gas giant's complex system of moons and rings. What the Carracks didn't understand was that they were being led into a trap. Commander Nicole Winters sat calmly on the bridge of the Earthship Valiant as her vessel led 3 Carrack ships toward Europa, one of Jupiter's moons. Her brown eyes showed no fear, only concentration. "Almost there," she said quietly. "Ready, Chief Kelly?" Chief Engineer Sam Kelly nodded from his station. "Stealth platforms are active and awaiting your command." The Valiant suddenly cut its engines and dropped below the orbit of Europa. The pursuing Karax ships, unable to react quickly to the unexpected maneuver, kept going, straight into the path of 20 hidden weapon platforms that had been placed there 3 days earlier. Across the Jupiter system, similar scenes played out as the confident Karax fleet found itself split up and ambushed by weapons they couldn't see until it was too late. Not designed to destroy the Karax ships entirely, the stealth platforms instead targeted engines, weapons, and communication systems with surgical precision. On the Dominant, Kravnar watched in growing horror as his command screen showed ship after ship reporting critical failures. His own vessel shuddered as something struck its main power conduits. "What is happening?" he roared. "Where are they attacking from?" "Unknown, War Commander," his tactical officer replied in panic. "Our sensors detect nothing." That was when Commander Winter's voice came through on all Karax frequencies. "Attention, Karax fleet. This is Commander Nicole Winters of Earth Defense Fleet. Your ships have been disabled. You hunt with claws and fangs. We hunt with patience and intelligence. Consider your options carefully." As the message ended, the main view screen on the Dominant lit up to show hundreds of small objects appearing suddenly all around the Karax fleet. More weapon platforms, each capable of destroying a Karax ship, all having remained invisible until this moment. "Impossible," Kravnar whispered. His tactical officer turned to him with fear in his eyes. "War Commander, we are surrounded. 37% of our fleet is already disabled. The rest cannot maneuver effectively due to damage." For the first time in his life, Kravnar felt true fear. Not the brief caution of facing another predator, but the deep primal terror of being trapped prey. He suddenly understood what countless species had felt when facing the Karax. "Open a channel," he ordered, his voice quieter than before. Commander Winters appeared on screen, her human face showing no triumph, only determination. "This is War Commander Kravnar. You have won this engagement. What are your terms?" "Return to your space," Winters replied simply. "Inform your leaders that the Sol system and all human colonies are off limits to the Karax Dominion. Any further aggressive actions will be met with similar responses." "You would let us leave?" Kravnar asked in genuine confusion. "After defeating us?" Winters nodded. "We're not interested in destroying you, Commander, only in protecting ourselves." As the damaged Karax fleet limped away from Jupiter, a new message spread through their ranks, one that would soon reach every corner of the Dominion. The humans were not prey. They were something the Karax had never encountered before, a species physically weaker but strategically superior, a predator that hunted without claws or fangs. Back on Earth, Admiral Nelson received Commander Winters' report with a grim smile. "It worked," she told the Defense Council. "But this is just the beginning. The Karax won't give up easily. Their entire identity is built on being the ultimate predator." "Perhaps," said Dr. Grant thoughtfully, "it's time they learned that there are different kinds of predators in the universe." And across the stars, the Karax were indeed learning a painful lesson. Sometimes the most dangerous hunter isn't the one with the sharpest teeth, but the one with the cleverest mind. The halls of the Karax High Council echoed with angry roars. 2 failed military actions against the humans had shaken the foundation of Karax society. For thousands of years, they had been the undisputed apex predators of the galaxy. Now, for the first time, they faced a species they couldn't simply overwhelm with physical might. Supreme Overlord Vraxkul sat on his bone throne. Yellow eyes narrowed as he listened to the heated debate around him. Unlike the other council members, he remained silent, deep in thought. Finally, he raised one massive clawed hand and the room fell quiet. "We have made a mistake," Vraxkul said, his deep voice rumbling through the chamber. "We have approached the humans as we would any prey species. This has failed. We need to understand what we are facing." War Commander Kravnar, who had barely survived the humiliation of the Jupiter defeat, looked up in surprise. "Supreme Overlord, with respect, what is there to understand? They are physically weak creatures who have developed advanced technology. We just need more ships, more— silence. Vraxkul cut him off. More force is not the answer. Think, Kravnar. When a predator faces a new prey, what does it do first? It studies the prey's patterns, answered Science Director Zexikal, the oldest and wisest of the council members. It learns the prey's strengths and weaknesses before striking. Exactly, said Vraxkul. We have failed to study these humans properly. That ends now. He turned to Zexkal. You will go to Earth as our emissary. Learn everything you can about these strange creatures. Zexkal's eyes widened. Me, Supreme Overlord? I am a scientist, not a diplomat. Which is precisely why you will go, Vraxkul replied. We don't need diplomacy yet, we need understanding. 3 weeks later, Zexikal stood nervously in a secure room at the United Earth Government headquarters in Geneva. Though he would never admit it to his fellow Karax, he was afraid. He, a 9-foot-tall armored predator with claws that could tear through metal, was afraid of the soft, small humans watching him from across the room. Dr. Gary Phillips approached the Karax scientist, extending his hand in the human greeting gesture. At 5'10", he looked tiny next to the alien. Visitor. Science Director Zexkal. Welcome to Earth, Dr. Phillips said. I'm Dr. Gary Phillips, head of xenobiology at the Global Science Institute. I'll be your guide during your stay with us. Zexkal stared at the offered hand, then awkwardly extended his own massive clawed appendage. The human showed no fear as they completed the greeting ritual. Your world is not what I expected, Zexkal admitted as they walked through the building. Your architecture lacks defensive spines. Your doors are not reinforced against claw attacks. Even your furniture seems designed for comfort rather than combat readiness. Dr. Phillips smiled. That's because we haven't had to worry about claw attacks for quite some time. Our main predators on Earth became our food sources thousands of years ago. This concept was completely alien to Zexkal. On the Karax homeworld, predators ate predators. The strong consumed the weak. It was the natural order. Over the next few weeks, Zexikal was given unprecedented access to human history, culture, and biology. Each new discovery left him more confused than the last. I don't understand, he said one day as he and Dr. Phillips reviewed human evolutionary history. Your species began as prey animals? Small, weak creatures hunted by larger predators? In many ways, yes, Phillips confirmed. Early humans were vulnerable to many predators. We weren't the strongest, fastest, or best-armed species on our planet. Then how did you survive? How did you become dominant? We had a few advantages, Phillips explained. Our brains grew larger. We developed tools. We learned to work together in ways other species couldn't match. And we had something called endurance running. Endurance running? Zexikal repeated, unfamiliar with the concept. Before we had weapons like spears or bows, humans would hunt by literally chasing animals until they collapsed from exhaustion, Phillips said. Most predators are built for short bursts of speed, not long-distance running. Humans can keep going for hours, even days. Zexikal's eyes widened. You chased prey until it gave up? Not a quick, powerful strike, but a slow, inevitable pursuit? Exactly. Phillips nodded. Persistence hunting. Many anthropologists believe it shaped our evolution and psychology in profound ways. That night in his quarters, Zexkal couldn't sleep. The Karax were ambush predators, built for sudden, overwhelming attacks. The idea of slowly chasing prey to exhaustion seemed bizarre, almost cruel. Yet he was beginning to understand why. The humans had responded to Karax aggression the way they did. The next day, Zexikal requested access to human military history. What he found disturbed him deeply. You fought wars against your own species? He asked Phillips, genuine horror in his voice. Unfortunately, yes, Phillips admitted. Thousands of wars throughout our history. This was incomprehensible to Zexkal. The Karax certainly had dominance fights within their own kind, but full-scale wars between groups of the same species? Unthinkable. But why? You're the same species. Different. Tribes, nations, Ideologies, Phillips explained. Humans can be territorial, competitive, and unfortunately sometimes cruel to those they see as different from themselves. As Zexcal studied human warfare, a terrible realization dawned on him. While the Karax had spent millennia easily dominating physically weaker species, humans had spent that same time fighting equally intelligent opponents, themselves. Their weapons and tactics had evolved against thinking adversaries, not simple prey. Your weapons, he said quietly one evening. They're so precise, so efficient. The Karax focus on size and power, but human weapons, we learned that precision often matters more than raw power, Phillips explained. A small, accurate strike at a vulnerable point is more effective than a massive blow to a protected area. After 2 months on Earth, Zexcal requested a meeting with the United Earth Defense Council. In a large conference room, he faced Admiral Nelson, General Daniels, and other human leaders. I wish to thank you for your hospitality, the Karax scientist began. In my time here, I have learned more than I thought possible about your species. I now understand why our conventional approaches failed against you. And what have you concluded, Science Director? Asked Admiral Nelson. The Karax have always defined strength in terms of physical power, Zexcal explained. Claw strength, armor thickness, venom potency. But humans, he paused, searching for the right words. Humans are what my people would call wrong shape, predators. You don't look like predators, you don't act like predators, yet somehow you hunt more effectively than any species we have encountered. He placed a data device on the table. This is my report to the Supreme Overlord. I have recommended that the Dominion seek peaceful relations with humanity rather than conflict. Do you think they'll listen? General Daniels asked. I don't know, Zexcal admitted. This challenges everything the Karax believe about the natural order, but I have included one observation that may give them pause. What's that? Asked Dr. Phillips. In all of your history, whenever humans have faced a superior predator, you haven't simply accepted your place as prey. You've studied the predator, adapted, and eventually turned the hunter into the hunted. Zexcal's voice lowered. For a species that has been at the top of the food chain for 50,000 years, that is a terrifying thought. As his ship prepared to return to Karax space, Zexcal looked out at the blue planet below. Unlike his fellow Karax, he no longer saw a world of soft prey creatures. He saw the home of a different kind of apex predator, one that had evolved not through physical dominance, but through intelligence, cooperation, and a relentless determination that had allowed a species of vulnerable apes to reach the stars. In his final report, he wrote, "The humans lack natural weapons, so they built artificial ones. They lack armor, so they created shields. They lack strength, so they developed machines. But most importantly, they lack the instinct to dominate through force alone, and this makes them more dangerous, not less. They are not apex predators, as we understand the term. They are something we have never encountered before." The grand throne room of the Karax Dominion fell silent as Science Director Zexcal finished presenting his report on humans. For several long moments, no one spoke. Supreme Overlord Vraxkul sat motionless on his bone throne, yellow eyes fixed on the holographic images of Earth that floated in the center of the room. Is this some kind of joke, Science Director? War Admiral Graxthar finally asked, breaking the silence. You suggest we fear creatures that stand barely taller than our young? Creatures with no natural armor or weapons? Zexcal turned to face his critic. I suggest we respect them, War Admiral. There is a difference. Respect prey? Graxthar laughed, a harsh clicking sound. Next you'll tell us to respect the food on our plates. Several council members joined in the laughter, but it died quickly, when Supreme Overlord Vraxkul raised his hand for silence. Science Director, Vraxkul said, his deep voice echoing through the chamber. You have spent more time with these humans than any Karax. In your opinion, what would happen if we launched a full-scale invasion of their territory? The room grew tense again. A full-scale invasion meant thousands of ships, millions of Karax warriors. No species had ever withstood such an assault. Supreme Overlord, Zexacal replied carefully. I believe we would eventually win such a conflict through sheer numbers. But the cost would be unprecedented. Explain, Braxcool demanded. The humans' technology is more advanced than ours in many areas, particularly in precision targeting and stealth systems. But more importantly, they think differently than we do. Zexcal brought up new images on the holographic display. Human weapons, human cities, human history. When faced with a superior enemy, humans don't surrender as most prey species do. They adapt. They find weaknesses, and they are willing to sacrifice themselves in ways that seem irrational to us. War Commander Kravnar, still bearing scars from the Jupiter defeat, stepped forward. With respect, Science Director, you sound afraid of these soft creatures. I am, Zexcal admitted, shocking everyone in the room. Not of what they are now, but of what they would become if we forced them to fight for their survival. Their entire evolutionary history has prepared them to overcome stronger predators. Across the galaxy, a similar discussion was taking place. In the United Earth Defense Headquarters, Admiral Susan Nelson stood before the assembled military and government leaders, reviewing the latest intelligence on Karax movements. They're divided, she explained, pointing to data on the large screen behind her. Our sources indicate that Science Director Zexcal's report has caused significant debate within their leadership. Some want peace, others are pushing for all-out war. And which side is winning? Asked President Olivia Chen. General Vincent Daniels stepped forward. It's too close to call, Madam President. But we need to prepare for the worst while hoping for the best. What do you recommend? The President asked. A demonstration, Admiral Nelson replied. Not of our military power, they've already seen that, but of our willingness to establish peaceful relations despite our differences. Captain Jack Boyd, recently promoted after his role in the Jupiter defense, spoke up from his seat near the back of the room. Admiral, if I may, during my conversations with Zexcal, he seemed particularly interested in human cooperation. The Karax evolved as solitary hunters. The idea of different species working together as equals is foreign to them. President Chen nodded slowly. So we show them what cooperation looks like. She turned to her chief diplomat. Ambassador Williams, prepare an invitation to the Supreme Overlord of the Karax Dominion. We're going to propose something bold. 3 months later, representatives from 27 spacefaring species gathered at the newly constructed Galactic's Congress Station, a massive structure built in neutral space between the major galactic powers. The station's design reflected input from all member species, a physical symbol of cooperation rather than domination. Captain Boyd, now serving as diplomatic attaché, stood in the massive docking bay alongside Ambassador Williams and President Chen, waiting as the Karax delegation's ship docked. The ship's design was less aggressive than typical Karax vessels, a small but significant change. The delegation that emerged was led by a surprising figure, Science Director Zexacal himself, accompanied by Ambassador Thex Van, a younger Karax, with unusually colorful armor plates. Science Director, Boyd greeted warmly. I'm pleased to see you again, Captain Boyd, Zexcal replied with a small bow, a human gesture he had learned during his time on Earth. The Supreme Overlord sends his regrets that he could not attend personally. There are matters requiring his attention at home. What and Zexcal didn't mention was that several Karax colony worlds were now in open rebellion, inspired by the news that humans had successfully challenged the Dominion. The old order was already crumbling. As they moved through the station toward the main conference chamber, Ambassador Thex Van looked around with undisguised curiosity. This design is unusual, he noted. Different architectural styles blended together. Each section was designed by a different member species, President Chen explained. We wanted the station itself to represent our belief that diversity creates strength. Thex Van clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. An interesting concept. On our worlds, uniformity is preferred. It strengthens the chain of command. Different evolutionary paths lead to different strengths, Boyd suggested. That's what we're hoping to recognize with the Galactic Cooperative. The main conference chamber was a marvel of engineering. a perfect circle with seats arranged to ensure no species appeared more important than others. As the Earth and Karax representatives entered, the room fell silent. Many of the gathered species had suffered under Karax domination for generations. Seeing their former oppressors enter as potential equals was shocking. President Chen took her place at the speaker's platform. Distinguished representatives, today marks a historic moment. For too long, relations between our civilizations have been defined by dominance and submission. We propose a new model, one based on mutual respect and cooperation. She outlined the proposed structure of the Galactic Cooperative, an alliance where each species would contribute based on their strengths and receive protection for their weaknesses. Trade agreements, scientific exchange, mutual defense pacts, all designed to benefit every member equally. When she finished, Ambassador Thexvan stepped forward to address the gathering. "The Supreme Overlord has authorized me to sign the proposed treaty," he announced, causing murmurs of surprise throughout the chamber. Though many in our society still struggle to understand how this new order will function. Boyd, sitting next to Zexcal, whispered, "How did you convince them?" "I showed them the alternative," Zexcal replied quietly. "A prolonged war with humans would have weakened us enough for our other subjects to revolt. The Supreme Overlord is practical, if nothing else." After the formal signing ceremony, representatives gathered in smaller groups, many still wary of the Karax despite the treaty. On an observation deck overlooking the stars, Boyd found Zexcal standing alone. "Your people have done something remarkable," the Karax scientist said as Boyd joined him. "You've changed the course of galactic history without firing a shot." "Not entirely without firing shots," Boyd reminded him with a small smile. "Jupiter, remember?" "Ah, yes." Zexcal made the clicking sound that passed for Karax laughter. "But those shots disabled rather than destroyed. That distinction matters." Staff, scientist Lila Weber joined them, carrying data tablets with the finalized treaty text. "The translation has been approved by all parties," she told Boyd. "We're officially in business." "Your people have much to teach mine," Zexcal said to her. "For 50,000 years we believed strength came only from dominance. You've shown us there are other paths," Weber smiled. "And you have things to teach us too. That's what makes this work, each species bringing different perspectives." As they looked out at the stars, a small transport ship passed by the window. One of the new joint species vessels designed for the Cooperative's scientific mission. Its hull bore the emblems of 7 different worlds, including both Earth and the Karax homeworld. "It won't be easy," Boyd said, watching the ship. "Changing the way things have been for millennia never is." "No," Zexcal agreed. "But as I've learned from studying humans, the most worthwhile things rarely are." Across the station, similar conversations were taking place, as ancient enemies cautiously began to see each other as potential allies. The age of Karax dominance was ending, not through their defeat, but through transformation into something new and perhaps greater. And it had all begun because a species of soft, clawless creatures had shown the galaxy's most feared predators that there was more than one way to be strong.